Welcome to This Week in East Brunswick. Today we celebrate Lunar New Year with the Chinese Heritage School of New Jersey as they host a program at the East Brunswick Public Library to ring in the Year of the Pig. We have members of the Arcadian Trio joining us in studio to talk about Music Transcends, a concert that will be held at the East Brunswick Community Arts Center benefiting the Lost Souls Memorial Project. The annual Phyllis Noar Puppetry Festival continues at the East Brunswick Public Library as puppeteer Jim Napolitano teaches children how to make their own shadow box puppets. And we welcome oncologist Dr. Michael Nissenblatt to the studio to talk about an upcoming program he will lead at the Community Arts Center. All this and more, so stay with us. This Week in East Brunswick starts now.
This is Barbara Reese reporting for EBTV. We're very fortunate to be here today in the studio with members of the Arcadian Trio and their narrator, Diane Goldsmith. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
And we also have Ivan Woods, the narrator.
Thanks
Welcome.
for having us.
And so we have an exciting event coming up in March. Tell us a little bit about the trio and what's coming up here in East Brunswick.
Wonderful. The program is called Music Transcends, and it features composers who wrestled with adversity. They may have encountered racial prejudice, religious prejudice, maybe they encountered, they were struggling against tyranny. their music may reflect this, but it goes beyond the particular circumstances of their lives. It transcends in that it still stirs emotions in listeners who are generations past that music, and it touches their hearts and souls.
Now, when you were explaining to me earlier, is that there's a little special tie here, a historical perspective as well, and you as a narrator tie in the music to specific time periods.
My job as narrator is to provide information about the composers and also put them into some sort of historical perspective. We also present visual images that will help tie things together and help draw the audience in a bit.
So, for example, you have a composer whose premiere song is going to be presented in this presentation.
Yes, we're happy that the trio commissioned Kyle Smith, who's a very well-regarded composer from Philadelphia, to write a piece for the trio, and it's about African-American themes. It's based on spirituals. Now, spirituals were songs that were made up by enslaved Africans brought to this country, and the masters didn't want them to talk to one another because the masters were afraid they might try to conspire to escape. So they made up songs, and these songs were coded. They gave information on how to escape. And we're also going to present a really extraordinary piece that features klezmer themes.
Now, this was written by Russian composer Dmitri Shostakovich in 1944. This was a time, of course, during the Second World War, when the Russians were finally beating back the Nazis in their stranglehold of certain cities in Russia. And as they beat them back through Poland, they encountered the death camps. And Shostakovich was not Jewish, but he was blown away with this information. He was devastated. And he took those emotions and he wrote this piece. And it is a parody of the kind of klezmer themes that you would hear, the joyous themes you might hear at a Jewish wedding. And I guarantee that anybody who hears this piece will be touched by it.
Now, this also ties into a project here locally. Some of the proceeds are going to benefit the Lost Souls Project. Could you tell us a little bit more about that tie-in?
Sure. The Arts Commission very wisely saw a kinship between our concert and the Lost Souls Public Memorial Project, which is aiming to erect a public memorial in East Brunswick to the almost 200 people who were sold into slavery here in the 19th century by a corrupt East Brunswick judge. And they are hoping to list the names of all these people. And this is a major project. And it is a major change in our understanding about East Brunswick. You know, it's a bit of a shameful episode, but it's something that we all need to take in and reconcile with and understand.
So it's a collaboration.
Yes.
Between the trio and the commission and the project. So not only can you hear some wonderful music, but you're actually supporting a good cause.
Absolutely. Now, the music we've discussed so far is kind of serious, but there's also several lighthearted selections on the program.
To lighten matters, Diane talked about the composer Shostakovich, who was a Russian from the early part of the 20th century. The first Shostakovich piece that the trio is going to play is one that he wrote when he was 17, in the throes of his first love. And then towards the jazz spectrum, going to perform a piece by a African-American composer from the later 20th century named David Baker. Now, he was an interesting character. He wanted to, growing up in the 40s and 50s, he wanted to be a classical trombonist, but during that period, that door was really closed to him because of racial prejudice. So he became a college professor instead. He taught at a college in Missouri and was forced from that position because he married a white opera singer. Fortunately for music, he wound up at Indiana University, a well-regarded music school, and started their jazz studies program, and went from there to become a composer and later a jazz cellist. And the piece he wrote, Boogie Woogie, is really much lighthearted and a lot of fun. He also wrote a piece for cell phone and orchestra.
We're not doing that this time, but maybe next time.
Also, there's a wide range of music, a little something for everybody.
Absolutely. We span these styles between classical to jazz and, of course, the spirituals in there too.
So for those who are interested in attending, where is it going to be held and when is that going to happen?
Okay. Sunday, March 10th at 2 o'clock. The composer of the new work, Kyle Smith, will be in attendance, and he will also be there for the reception. The tickets are online at eastbrunswick.org/Music Transcends, where you can get all the information about the rest of the program and about the musicians.
And it will be held at the Community Arts Center on Cranberry Road.
So it's an affordable afternoon and a lot of interesting pieces talking about composers who've overcome great adversity and beautiful music.
Absolutely
and
beautiful
for a
music.
good cause.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here
Thank
today.
you.
It was a pleasure having you
Thank
here
you.
in the studio, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
The Friends of the Library sponsored a shadow puppet workshop where children were able to make their own puppets as part of the 20th annual Phyllis Noar Puppetry Festival.
Today, I'm going to show you how to make a very simple shadow puppet. Shadows are great because they're the fastest kind of puppet to make out of all the different kinds. Hand, string, mask, rod. Shadows are made the fastest. They're also made the least expensive. They cost the least amount of money and materials to make. So they're fast, inexpensive, and they're made with things that are not exotic. Make shadows with things you have right around. Like you could get a lot of your materials for free, like cardboard from cereal boxes. You could use that for free and make shadow puppets. You could use things that you find very easy, and I'll show you about it. So today, what you're going to do, your steps, choose a design. I'll show you the designs in a minute. You're going to color those designs. You're going to cut those designs out. Then you're going to put a control rod, which is a way to move your puppets around.
Hello, I'm Karen Parry, Manager of Information Services here at the library and manager of the library's Just for the Health of It initiative. I'm joined here today by Dr. Michael Nissenblatt, medical oncologist. Welcome, doctor.
Thank you.
And he's here to talk about a very exciting and unique program that will be happening on Wednesday, April 10th from 7 to 8:30 called From Here to Eternity, How to Die of Old Age. What a unique title. Welcome, doctor, and would you tell us a little bit about this very exciting program and how it will help our residents?
Aging is something that is on everybody's mind. Whether we are aware of it or not, we are thinking how long we are going to live. I like to promise my patients that they're all going to reach 100, and I wish that were true. But it's always on everybody's mind whether they have a cancer or don't have a cancer. So what is aging? Aging is a process, a natural process. Not an illness, not a disease, but it's a natural process in which a person who is fit and healthy transforms into a person who is unfit and unhealthy. And along the way of life, we accumulate those conditions that cause that. Things that you know and I know and our viewers know. Things like diabetes, heart disease, congestive heart failure, cancer that's so close to my heart, things such as neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's disease. These are the things that people accumulate along the way, and they occur with aging. So what can we do about it is going to be the ultimate theme of this project that we're going to present. Aging is a major issue in the United States. If you think about what was the life expectancy in the late 1700s in this country, it was 35. We presume that some people died of gun wounds then, maybe a lot. But in 1900, the average age of expectancy was only 51 years. And in 1950, it finally hit 68, a little above what we now know to be Medicare, which took place 16 years later. By 1985, life expectancy was 74, and by 2000, 78. Right now, we're about 80 for men and 82 for women. The whole population is aging. In 1940, there were 7% of Americans were older than 65. In 1970, it was 13%. Do you know that now nearly 1 out of 5 Americans are older than 65? And so we can expect those conditions that they accumulate along the way to be hitting us. And it's hitting us in our health pocket, and it's hitting us and all the physicians in the care that we wish to provide to people. Well, one of the things we're going to talk about is, does everybody age? Do all animals age? It's an important question. We normally think, if you have a pet, that a pet ages, dog years, 7 human years to 1 dog year. We all see our pets age, become less vigorous, become less active. Is that a finding of old age in a dog? Of course. What about other animals? Well, for example, large mammals are animals that are close to our heart. The elephant, the African elephant. Do you know the African elephant has an average age of 120 years of a life expectancy? The animal starts to reproduce at the age of 30, but does not stop reproducing until the age of 90, the age of Sarah in the Old Testament. Can you imagine? We've discovered that elephants have a particular gene, a unique gene that is in abundance that prevents cancer. Not a single elephant has had cancer. Humans have the same gene. And in us, that gene also prevents cancer if it's in the right amount. But if it's too much, it speeds up aging. We would like people to reach an older age, not to call them elderly, we want to call them welderly. People who are vivacious, people who are virile, people who are very active in their lives. The elephant tells us that they survive and reproduce beyond any other mammal in terms of their age. If you go somewhat west, that is west of South America, to an island owned by Ecuador, you will find on the island of Pinta, one of the islands of the Galapagos, of Darwin fame, that there was the famous Galapagos turtles, the tortoises. There are 3 species, or at least were 3 species. This was the last living species that existed, and that was Lonesome George. Lonesome George ultimately died just a few years ago at the age of 110. They studied his genes, and they found that he had a number of genes that were responsible for genomic instability, responsible for epigenetics, for nutrient transfer, telomerase, and senescence. And those are the same genes that are responsible for aging and also for preventing cancer. There's a very close correlation between cancer and aging, and we seek to learn more about this during our talk. We're going to talk about ways to overcome aging. What's one of the most common things that we hear about is dementia. Do you know that dementia can be combated not just by diet or supplements or medications that can have side effects, but we've now learned, Wendy Suzuki, who's a neuroscientist at NYU, has found that there is actually a way of creating proteins that regenerate the brain. Exercise, simple exercise. She has found that by exercising humans and animals, the muscles become an organ that secrete proteins. They emanate proteins that stimulate brain growth. And what part of the brain grows? The part of the brain that grows is the part that's responsible for memory. A protein called double cortin and brain-derived neural factors grow rapidly with simple exercise. I realize that many people can't exercise because of their heart, because of other problems that they might have had with their orthopedics. But everybody can do more than they're doing. I just saw a person yesterday who had major surgery on her hip, could not do lower limb activities, but they're doing exercises with their trunk, with their upper limbs. When they all can do more than we think we can do. Yes, we can diet. Yes, there are certain nutritional and vitamin supplements that might be valuable, and we're going to talk about those. And yes, we can do exercises. That's a very important activity. We can combat and reverse the senescent effects of aging and retain youth into our older ages and become ourselves among the welderly. This is an organization for education, to rejuvenate our brains, to bring knowledge to our community. Join me, join Mrs. Perry, and join all the other people who are going to enjoy this experience.
Thank you so much, Doctor. And I encourage all of our residents to come out. That's Wednesday, April 10th from 7 to 8:30 for this wonderful program being sponsored by the Cancer Support Community Central New Jersey and Regional Cancer Care Associates Central Jersey Division. Thank you, Doctor, and we look forward to April 10th.
Today at Hammarskjold Middle School, hundreds of students, teachers, and faculty members gathered for a rally as part of the school's special program for building character in young people. The special guest of the day and national spokesman for the Character Counts program was actor Tom Selleck.
Fame is a vapor, popularity is an accident, money takes wings. The only thing that really endures is character.
Trustworthiness embraces four separate and distinct qualities: honesty, integrity, dependability, and loyalty. Therefore, our banner reads, "Trustworthiness is knowing that you can count on me."
Respect requires each and every one of us to be courteous and polite, judge all people on their merits, and appreciate and value individual differences. Our slogan for respect is "Earn respect, it's a treasure."
Responsibility includes accountability, self-restraint, self-motivation, and the pursuit of excellence. Therefore, as our banner states, responsibility is the key to success.
Fairness is demonstrated by treating all people fairly, being open-minded, listening to others, and trying to understand what they're saying and feeling. We believe fairness is the way to go.
Caring is concern for the interest of others. Ways of showing caring are through generosity and compassion. Our banner reads, "Start caring, be daring."
Good citizenship involves obeying the law and respecting authority, becoming involved in community service, voting, and protecting the environment. As our banner states, let's work together for a better community.
At a press conference earlier, Tom Selleck talked about the importance of role models.
I'd also point out that we have a real problem in the country, I think, about who we encourage and who kids see as their heroes and role models. We are confusing heroes with celebrities. It's not enough to be idolized or admired because of the money you make, or because you're an actor, or because you dribble a basketball well, or you make a lot of money. And we have to encourage kids to start admiring people for who they are as opposed to what they are. And the only way we're going to do this is if we ourselves acknowledge our obligation to model good, positive behavior. We have to walk what we talk. You know, it's not enough for us to judge ourselves by our good intentions, because clearly we are all judged by our last worst act. And we've got to get beyond the idea that as adults that something is proper simply because it is permissible, or that something is ethical simply because it's legal. If we have a lost generation of kids, that's our responsibility.
At the rally, Josephson and Selleck were presented with a key to the Township of East Brunswick by Mayor Ira Skowski.
Few of us are as good as we think we are, and none of us are as good as we can be. Sometimes it seems like a big subject, you wonder what you can do. Well, there's two little girls who are going down the beach and come around another bend. And on the beach are thousands of starfish washed up on the shore. And they're drying out. Well, immediately one of the little girls runs over, she picks up a starfish and starts to put it back in the water. The other little girl says, "What are you doing?" She's a little more cynical. And the other girl said, "Well, I'm going to put the starfish back in the water." She says, "Well, that's crazy." She said, "There must be thousands of starfish here. It just doesn't matter." The other little girl looks at the starfish in her hand and she says, "It does to this one." So think about that. And thanks for making me feel so welcome, and thank you for your commitment to Character Counts.